This is Get Inspired with Dea Lyeese. Thanks for joining me. Today's topic, sensitivity to spillage. Have you ever spilled a cup of coffee or any hot beverage in your lap? Even if you haven't, the picture of that is almost grimacing. Usually, it's while you're sitting and the temperature of the beverage is so unbearable to the skin that you cannot remain seated. Typically, our bodies are sensitive to those types of things, and as a result, it puts us in a momentary discomfort. And just as hot coffee is to skin, so is the negativity of others is to our spirit. Our negative behaviors tend to spill over to others, creating a bad influence. The powerful forces of influence could be good or bad. Typically, the bad creates more spillage. Why is that? Initially, Satan made a huge impact on the world when he influenced Adam and Eve to disobey God. So, what does this say? From the beginning, we have been in practice with rebellion and sin, and it has had an influence on us. We all have influence and, in turn, influence others. We choose whether the influence is going to be good or evil, but the latter usually carries more weight and creates a damaging impact. Romans 14:7 ESV says, "For none of us lives to himself, and none of us dies to himself." If we are influencing others negatively, our behaviors are spilling over to them, which then leads us to violating their will and conscience. As a result, we are practicing sin. The truth of the matter is, we cannot be around all types of influences and remain pure. And we must check our own influences and clean up our spillage. Deuteronomy 12:6-11 NIV says, "If your very own brother or your son or daughter or the wife you love or your closest friend secretly entices you, saying, 'Let us go and worship other gods, gods that neither you nor your ancestors have known, gods of the peoples around you, whether near or far, from one end of the land to the other. Do not yield to them or listen to them. Show them no pity. Do not spare them or shield them. You must certainly put them to death. Your hand must be the first in putting them to death, and then the hands of all the people. Stone them to death, because they tried to turn you away from the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. Then all Israel will hear and be afraid, and no one among you will do such an evil thing again." The temptations of influence is strong and even stronger when it comes from those we are connected to. God recognized the power of influence, and so he warned and gave commandments to the children of Israel, as reflected in the above passage. Although this seems quite extreme, the application for us today is to remove and cancel out or turn away from such influences that causes us to rebel against and separate from God. Those types of influences we should be sensitive to because of the impact they will have on our spirit, and in turn gravitates to a sinful lifestyle. Here's the takeaway. If we cannot remain seated when we spill a hot cup of coffee in our laps, we definitely cannot afford to stand still when the power of influence is of an evil nature. Just as our skin is sensitive to hot coffee, our spirit being should be highly sensitive to the temptations of influence, and as a result, we should avoid negative spillage. Here at Get Inspired, we have a prayer list called 100 Blessings from God, in efforts to pray for others and see the manifestation of God's blessings through your prayer request. When prayers are answered, we add another prayer as they are requested with the opportunity to pray for hundreds. If you desire prayer, please drop your request in the comments below or send us an email at getinspired.thejourney@gmail.com. This is Get Inspired with Dea Lyeese. Thanks for joining me. Be safe, blessed, and prosperous.